In this video, what we'll be doing is studying a quick, simple shape just based on the earlier photograph that I was talking about, the earliest staging of the Ghost in the Shell animated movie. What I'm doing is I've already grabbed shapes here, and pretty much now I'm just going into a little bit more value detail, a little bit more overall details of the background. But I always want to recommend students that when you start anything of such, you are starting with basic shapes, basic forms, so that your design your outcomes for your designs will be strong, solid, and at the same time effective. These are the things that students need to know how to basically stage that with simple shapes rather than worrying about detail or rather than worrying about uh, certain unnecessary elements before getting the successful conclusion on the overall shape designs. Most of the shapes are usually geoforms like the circle, cylinder, rectangle, the box, right? All these can help and will help you break things down a lot simpler and at the same time more effective. As I'm going through, as I'm drawing this, I'm just trying to grab a little bit more detail than the shapes that I've plotted earlier so that things can be seen, and also I'm trying to emphasize a little bit more detail to the scene so it reflects the quick study that I've from the picture that I've actually grabbed from one of the scenes of the movie. Now, my conclusion on these thumbnails shouldn't usually take about 15 minutes, not more than it. Just how I feel. It's because you're not trying to copy the exact detail to every detail of that scene, but what is this exercise very effective is to understand how the scene is staged, to understand how the scene is composed, to understand how the scene is laid out, to create ideas for students to say, you know what, this composition could be used in one of my shots, or this is a good composition, and ask one of the things is you're asking why in the first place were you attracted to pausing this scene. So I would really recommend students to pick a movie every week, to just not watch the whole movie, but go to the scenes. With digital technology today, you can pause the scene as long as you want, and really sit back and look at multiple scenes without, and just go through the scenes and ask yourself which are the scenes that are memorable. For me, as I was mentioning in my lectures earlier in the module 1, basically I was talking about the opening of Star Wars Episode 4, where the Death Star destroyer is Imperial Star Destroyer is chasing the Rebel blockade cruiser. That's why I really like that scene ever since I was 6.5 while I was watching the movie in the theater. Why is it so impactful? Why is it so epic? Why does it work? Why does it make that awe to the audience? It's because of the background designers, the cinema photographers, thought of how they were going to open the movie with an epic scale proportion of awe. So these are the things that, if those are the kind of scenes that students can relate to and say, well, these are some of the scenes that I can really relate and also find memorable experience or memorable inspiration, I would recommend you guys pausing whichever movie you're reflecting to. You do not have to pick Star Wars, but the scenes that, as you study them and as you start sketching on them, ask yourself that simple question of why is it effective? Why does it work? Why did it work to gain your interest? Why did it work to inspire you as an artist or as a viewer, right? All these elements are crucial. All these elements are important because you want to ask yourself that these shots are done purposely. You want to understand why are they done purposely, why the behind the scenes. Now, as someone who's interested in becoming a background designer, you need to basically ask yourself, what is more to it than just an awesome film? What is it more to it as an awesome shot? What is it more to it than awesome acting? What is it more to it than an good design? So all these questions are very helpful, I believe, because these are the things that I've learned throughout the years of being in the industry, and at the same time also watching movies. When you're watching movies, you're also you do not only want to be entertained as visual designers, you want to also ask yourself, why are you watching this? And at the same time, you are building your visual language and visual vocabulary. You'll hear me saying this quite a bit. So at the end of the day, I strongly suggest students doing that. Now, when you break this down into very basic shapes, the blacks, the grays, and the the black positive shapes and the grays, right? You obviously see how the dominant shapes and also how these scenes are broken down into 1/3, right? Very clearly how simple they are. But when you've obviously seen the end product, which I showed you in a previous video, and now you're seeing me breaking it down. And that's what I'm suggesting, that students should take the time as a first exercise to actually break down your scenes, break down the shots that you've picked, figure out how they are staged, how they put things, on screen. At the same time, also notice the atmospheric values, how they light it, because a lot of movie making is stage lighting, is purposeful lighting. So I just really want to encourage students to do all these because it will considerably help um, students to observe and learn. Again, I'm not putting in a lot of details. All I'm doing is grabbing the shapes, grabbing certain important areas. Um, I'm not asking you guys to replicate super detailed or replicate that scene, copying it to the every line and form or value. What I want you guys to really um, be aware of the importance is staging, composition, using basic shapes to build the composition and the overall shot. Foreground, as you can see, I was talking about to you guys earlier about the bridges, the foreground elements are used. So all these are very helpful to students, um, and at the same time, perspective, right? In the second module, we'll be talking about atmospheric perspective. So this all will help one to understand clearly how cinema photographers, how the process of design has been implemented throughout these scenes. I'm just adding a little bit of clarity for the overall shot. Um, so it shows surfaces. Obviously, when you have different values, you see superficial change, and so that it'll pop a little bit more than having flat areas. But these are very essential because it helps us define um, form in some of these scenes that you're analyzing. Um, Also, lighting also comes to play. As we wrap this up, um, again, I really want to encourage students to be observant, to ask, question yourselves how these things are set up to become effective, right? How these scenes are from basic elements like these, just three, four dominant shapes, right? And then bringing it to uh, a better value with detail. Detail is basically to me like icing on a cake. Detail is basically like the tiles on the house or the paint on the house. The structure of the house is the basic shapes. The structure of the house is the composition. The structure of the house is the solid composition, perspective, solid overall design. So the rest of the detail comes in. It will add that spice to your scene to make it believable, to make it um, conveying to your viewers and captivating your audiences. So I just want to really thank you for the time to watching this. Please watch the first section first of where I talked about the actual scenes, and then breaking this down into a little bit more formal shapes. And I hope this has helped, and thank you for watching.